My wife cheated on me not once, but twice in one night. I caught her cheating twice, and it became a point of no return in our fate. In this video, I will tell the amazing story of the drama that happened in my life after that night's discovery. Turn up the volume, and here we go. Hi all. There was a recent story I heard that resonated with me, so to speak. A response addressed to me personally as a man. I have been called out on the fact that I don't like women. I, hesitated for a long time to tell my story of my whole, shall we say, life. Some had already heard it about my ex-wife. So, I won't go into the distant wilderness. I'll start from the very moment I met my wife and end with today. So, one day I left an ad for an acquaintance on a dating site, and, as they say, got caught up in my business and forgot about it. It must have been 5 days, and then I received an email from a woman unknown to me. Well, I will omit the text of the letter. It takes a long time to retell. In general, asked to meet. The meeting, of course, as you might guess, took place. We met. She told me that she was married before me. I also told her that her husband was such a jerk. He had found someone else. Again, this is not so important, although I will talk about this a little later. So we started dating, time passed, my daughter was born, everything was good, and my mom accepted her as her own daughter. Everything was just perfect until New Year's Eve, or rather December 29, did not happen. Cassis at her work celebrate the new cat. Well, the teen babushki, came to drink, so we lived with her in a dorm. She had his own room, so she, as I said tipsy, went into the kitchen to put the kettle. As that evening I met her at work, we bought a cake. We decided to celebrate. Well, her phone rang. I pick up the phone and there, as you might guess, a man's voice. Well, in general, again, I will not go into details. I will only say that we talked to him. He told me that he and my wife, well, yes, you read right, candy bouquet period, intimate in general. I certainly did not give it much importance. Such calls that night were two. And they were from different men. Well, I do not know. I certainly pressed his wife to the wall. Well, she twisted. That night we had intimacy with her. All as it should be. So we sat down to drink tea, and then her phone rings. She chatted with me. I do not know. 10 minutes tops. When finished said, call the neighbor, floor below, asking to come in. She bought a new perfume. She wants to show off. She grabbed my coat, put on her boots, a hat, and took off. She came back, opened the door and said, I'll be back soon. Wait for me. 2 hours passed, she was gone. 3 hours passed, she was gone. The child came from her friend. It was 7:30 p.m. I thought, well, of course, jealousy was playing. I took the child to a neighbor. I dressed myself. I went out of the dorm and ran into that very neighbor with perfume. But she half laughing said, I saw her getting into your car. Well, I said thank you, of course. It came quickly. I ran to the bus stop, got into the bus, and drove to his mother, since she lived on the other side of town, where incidentally is now writing to you. So I got to his mother about an hour and a half. Since it was winter, snow, traffic jams all over the city, arrived, drank tea. My mother gave a meal, probably another half an hour, when my cell phone rings, and yes, calling his wife. Well, I told her that I know everything. On this I miss. What happened next? I will say only one thing. After that, my wife called 2 more times. Turned on the fool. Of course I got mad. Called her the very last words. We divorced her 3 months later. Then there was a period that my wife insisted on meeting, since I had already lived with my mother after the divorce. But these meetings had only an intimate nature. Well, again, I know that my wife is cheating on me. I could not even make love to her, as in this process she just cried. In general, after that we broke up. It was April the following year. As I have already told in one of the stories, I had another woman. Yes, how there appeared. It was not serious. I met a woman. We had a connection with her once, and that was it. But before meeting my wife, I had a woman whom I met a few years ago. She worked as a simple check room attendant in the locker room of the City Ovalmushroom Theater. Unfortunately, she was married. We were introduced to her by my mother, as one evening we were with her at a performance, and there we met. A certain spark slipped between us. Well, we started a romance, met, slept together, until one day her husband did not recognize us, came looking for me, not found it, insisted that she quit her job. Well, that is how our relationship with her stopped so far. And then on New Year's Eve, a year after the incident with my wife, calls actually my ex-wife to congratulate. Well, began to say let's start all over again. I was certainly angry at her for lying for treason. Well, that happened, that deleted her number. A fool, I understand. I regret. Here I have one story accused that I do not love women, as I said, so I have not told anyone all this. I opened my soul for the first time. Do not believe me. Here, in spite of all the betrayals of my ex, but I still love her. All my thoughts are only about her. Even my mother does not understand me, says that I am sick of her. How to be further and how to get out of this state. I understand that I need salvation, and as soon as possible. Please share your experiences, if any, or at least sensible advice. I hope something does work. This is the story, thank you in advance. And now on to the second story. In this amazing video, I will tell you the story of an infidelity that had unbelievable consequences. My wife betrayed me with a Chechen man, but she didn't expect him to track them down and punish them for it. Immerse yourself in a world of drama and horror with me, and we begin. Good afternoon to all. I guess my story can be called in a nutshell as there is no turning back after cheating. But first things first. My name is Ibrahim. I am only 33 years old. I'm Chechen myself, but I married a Russian. I married because we loved each other. I went against the will of all my relatives. We've been married for 5 years. We have a little boy. He's 3. One day, I was surfing the internet and read about one such thing. There is this app called WhatsApp. I think you are all familiar with it. So, if you delete the application and restore it again, it will be restored along with the deleted messages. In my job, I have frequent business trips, and I confess to you that I would be willing to take my wife and child with me to be together. But, as you might have guessed, she didn't want to. According to her, she loved me more than life. I myself am extremely disapproving of cheating. Of course, there were thoughts of going out. I'll be honest with you. But I was faithful to her in everything. And then my business trip comes to an end. I'm flying home. I was away for 2 weeks or so. During that time, my son was at my parents' in Chechnya. Arrived, warm welcome, everything as it should be. And she tells me she's going to her friend's birthday party. I was invited to go with her. But, as you might have guessed, I was tired. I thought I'd at least get a decent night's sleep. She went to take a shower, and she takes a long time to do that. In the meantime, I picked up her phone, did as I had read on the internet. And what do you think I found there? Yes, her correspondence with some Kamil. There were things in there that I don't even feel comfortable writing. In detail, the places they were doing it. They talked about it all. Read a lot of stuff. Dropped the whole chat to my email, cleaned up my tracks, and went to rest. In the meantime, she had already left. By the way, as it turned out later, she was on her way to him. You can judge me for not doing anything. But I waited for the next day as I found out about the meeting place. Of course, I didn't sleep. At first, such indifference woke up. Not because it was already there to begin with. It was only because I had read all that filth, all that stench. Somehow everything in me died in an instant. She came home at 4 o'clock in the morning and took a bath and went to bed next to her. Can you believe me lying next to her after that? There's nothing more disgusting. Anyway, I clenched my nerves into a fist and eventually fell asleep. The next day, coming home from work, she told me that she would go to the beauty salon. Something to do with her face. I do not know a lot about these things. I saw her off got dressed quickly, and drove to the agreed meeting place. There were a lot of cars, so I did not know which one was Camille. But soon I saw my spouse, who was standing at the entrance to the cafe, and of course immediately realized who he was as she got into his car. By the specifics of my job, it just so happens I know what surveillance is and how it all happens. I followed them, of course. At a distance, of course, as my car was not small. I was beautiful. I could see me. We drove for a long time. Eventually, we stopped at a park, and there was a parking lot next door where there were quite a few cars too. They parked. It was already about 11 p.m., and it was dark outside. I picked up my phone, turned on the camera. I was taking pictures so there wouldn't be any future custody questions, and I slowly walked up to the car, and there in all the glory of the picture of her taking from him, you know. I stood there filming for a minute or so, then I started laughing hysterically, and of course they stared at me in shock. My wife saw me, and her face must have changed from the light, I don't know, like 30 times. I opened the door, pulled him out of the car, and so to speak hit him a couple of times, but it was enough as he lost consciousness. At that time, my wife was sitting in the car, sobbing hysterically. I told her 3 times to get out of the car. Eventually, I had to drag her out by her hair. I do not beat women. I never thought that such a chance is even given. But I could not resist, and I slapped her sonorous slap in the face. Anyway, she ended up lying down next to him. There is nothing to be proud of. I do not argue, and even in some ways I regret what happened between me and my wife. Anyway, back to the story. I drove home and then sat staring blankly at the TV off, thinking of only one thing: my son. I love him very much, and he is an exact copy of me. I wondered how to go on with my life. She came home 2 hours later, rang the doorbell a couple of times. I opened the door and said, "You don't live here anymore," and just shut the door. So what do you think? Yes, she sat by the door until about 5 in the morning. There were neighbors coming out, and there was a commotion. It didn't bother me at all anymore. But still I let her in, told her I was giving her until 12 o'clock in the afternoon to pack her things and leave, and that I would not hear from her again. Of course, as usual, hysteria, tears, passed out twice. I really don't know if she really did, but I didn't care at all, was and is. At 12 she left. This same Camille came to pick her up. And about my son, of course, I said right away that I could forget about him. In the end, there was a trial. Of course, I hired a very serious lawyer, and I won the case. My son stayed with me. My point is all this. You see, I am very rich. I earn very decent money. 3 apartments in Moscow, 2 cars, real estate abroad. True recently, but still, so the moral is this. If a woman is a whore, so to speak, she will rarely do it even with you. In spite of everything she has, you know. Had everything, left a beggar. Men, it's hard to take that, I know, but my advice is simple. Move on. If your wife at least once cheated on you, there is no way back. Do not take it. Do not forgive. It's filth. Even if you love, you cannot forgive this. After that, you are not men. Peace to you. That's what I want to wish you. Don't cheat. Friends, and I want to thank you for finishing this video to the end, for subscribing to the channel, giving likes, dislikes, and various active in the comments. It means that these videos are interesting to you, and I will continue to work and try. Thank you. See you soon.